Hello, welcome once again to our Friday Huddle. It's myself at the moment, and we've got James here as well, who will be joining us in just a moment as soon as I click the invite and speaker button. So, as you know, with these weekly events, what we like to do is just have a bit of a decompress from the week and talk to you a little bit about some of the things that have been happening over on the community. If you can't be here to join us live, then that's not a problem because all of our previous recordings are available as for you to watch back. So as you may have seen, if you've been keeping an eye on the community, we've been uploading our blogs on a daily basis. So you can now join the conversation there and read up on the blogs. Hello, James. How you doing?
I'm well, mate. How are you?
Good. Yeah, just keeping busy. Just telling people about some of the exciting things that we've got. Also, another thing of excitement is that we've got our course modules, which I can see people are working their way through. Once people get to the end of that, then there'll be more modules being uploaded for people to enjoy. For those of you who don't know or haven't seen yet, we've got this sort of 12 module course where it gives you a real sort of overview of sort of the 12 core business aspects of how to become a more successful entrepreneur. And it's not just boring text. We've got videos on the modules as well, and sort of interactive parts where you can sort of do exercises and share some of your learnings there. So really the great first place for people to come. Since last week as well, we've also had James's conversation with Christina. I think it's 4 podcasts now you've had, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got those online now for you to listen to. And it's just, if you've been on LinkedIn, or which obviously you should be, you'll obviously know that Christina's a real sort of prolific voice in the sort of startup community, and it's a real great opportunity to share knowledge and talk to her and sort of chew the cud really on a lot of those sort of issues. But I guess the next time you'll be hearing about podcasts will be our own podcast, and we're just sort of getting the final touches put to that. That's really exciting. And what we wanted to do with that, as we've said before, is not just have like a sort of boring black and white businessy show, but also just to include as many of the different voices that you can hear around this sort of space. And some of the speakers that we've got lined up for future shows is really exciting. So we're going to be chopping that up together and sharing little snippets of that to try and get you excited about hearing our own perspective on this sort of exciting, vibrant local economy of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yep, indeed.
Very good. Very exciting stuff. From my end, what do we got that's interesting and new? First off, I think we're hopefully going to get commissioned to deliver a summer program for the university students. As we work very closely with the University of Essex in what we do. This particular program is a very short version of our traditional iTeams program, and that will be starting hopefully in June for those students that find it difficult either to get out of campus or can't leave, as majority of them are. So there is a summer skills business boot camp, and the idea is that we will find 1, maybe 2 businesses to work with in that particular program. It's a 2-week program that we've designed that puts together something around innovation and ultimately presents a particular challenge for these businesses to work with. Other than that, we're just in the process of also securing our versions of 6 and 7 of the Essex Business Accelerator, and those programs are due to start on July the 4th and October the 17th. I think the 2 cohorts that are going through that. We've got a very engaged and active cohort that we're working with on version number 5 at the moment, and it's really exciting to see their development and their growth and some of the things that are happening on that score. And from it, one of them has managed to already sort of kind of secure some funding, and somebody has also managed to secure some additional work by modifying their language, modifying their way they talk about their business, which is something that we constantly develop and work with. We work on setting out and kind of driving new aspiration in what they do. and then take them on this particular journey. And we're at stage number, I think we just finished last week, session number 4. So we're moving on next week to number 5, and there are another 3 sessions that they'll get involved with as they grow, as they develop and keep working on their sort of constant improvement in what they're doing. Also, we attended a pitching session last week where we heard from 13 businesses from various different stages at the university again. That pitching session, we saw anything from businesses which are looking to improve mental health and well-being, right the way through to a business that had developed a particular, I can't say too much about it because of the IP, but had developed a particular approach to maintaining athletes' clothing. That's all I'm going to say. So it's a broad church, but it's really interesting business, a very, very interesting product, and they're going through the patent process at this very moment to actually secure some of that particular protection. And there are other businesses out there as well that we've been sort of kind of working with, anything from, again, a legal business right the way through to anything within that kind of sports arena. And also, again, when we touched on it and we brought that in, I think, on our last newsletter on April 2023, a young guy at the university who we're supporting is a guy called Neil Chimru, and he's been on our programs, and he's also been very involved in developing a particular program that's counteracting the negativity around youth crime and particularly night violence. So all really, really interesting ideas that are just sort of coming up, and some of them are becoming quite interesting and scalable as well. So all in all, they are developing into some very interesting projects. Outside of that, what else have I been up to? I've been talking to number of different people in the councils around the county. So we had a meeting last night with Basildon, and there's some really, really interesting stuff going on down there in the creative tech sector. Again, and it will be it'll be the same this month on our newsletter when it goes out. But there was a lot of money and a lot of projects in the creative tech industry and tech sector that are really sort of happening and coming out of that particular area. So do look out for those kind of funding opportunities, those particular areas of support. Within that, I know that Colby are delivering some of the business support work via Mandeep, who works with the Weave as well. And he is delivering that along with a guy called Graham Archer, I think, who basically was somebody that was in the Innovate or Essex development side as well. So very much, there's a lot happening in this county, and there's a lot happening within the region. It's really sort of kind of exciting, and it's great to be right in the heart of it and right in the mix of it. And I think this is why, everybody should stay connected to us, because, we are absolutely pushing out the tentacles of the region and getting really involved in all of these areas of development. So the final bit of comment I'm going to make about the kind of stuff that we're doing and we're thinking about, we're working with a innovation platform. I don't want to say too much about it at the moment, but we're thinking about bringing an innovation event to the region sometime around about October this year, where we'll ultimately deliver a piece of open innovation, but hopefully based around this particular if you like, innovation toolbox that these guys have created. It's a really exciting platform, very, very accessible. There's a huge opportunity to improve your problem solving, to really understand how innovation can come about, and then at the end of the day, provide some kind of outcome, whether it be a minimum viable product or something at the end of the day that can help reconnect or redefine what you're doing within your business. And then finally, we got a meeting and some work that we've been doing with a business down in Maidstone, which is basically through the High 3 network. And that was also looking at the possibility of something building a partnership within that creative tech sector as well. So, yeah, as I said, really, really interesting stuff going on. What else am I going to say? Reading.
That's what I
Okay.
kind of like about the difference between a week's worth. You open up your email every day and sort of see new things happening, and it's it can be
Yeah.
quite hard to keep up at times, but it's just good. And I think from my perspective, we've also got our Alex as well, who's sort of tinkering behind the scenes, sort of thinking how she can take the community to new places and sort of foster further engagement, because we're pleased to sort of see that more and more people are joining. It's now the case of, once you get people, that's always the problem, isn't it, with communities and trying to build movements, is the first stage of attracting people to it, which is one half of the problem. And then the next thing is, how do you then show people that there's things happening of interest, and things happening that is going to sort of foster engagement, which is, I suppose, why you have entire businesses around tackling that particular problem. And
yeah, I do, and I think I've always maintained that when we're kind of thinking about brand development within any business, one of the big things that we have to kind of engage with, there are 4 pillars when it comes to this. One of which is around purpose, around understanding what your purpose is within the business, the clear kind of change, the dynamics of what you're trying to do. The community building side of it is hugely important. Again, communities get confused with customers. Customers live inside your community, but so do a hell of a load of other stakeholders. And it's those stakeholders that can offer you access to anything from resources, partnerships, co-founders. The community can get you involved in finding out where all your partnerships exist, that kind of stuff. But within your community, there will be your customers. And we always say, again, within the purpose of development, is we never sell to our community. We motivate our community to stay engaged with us and to see ourselves as the opportunity or an area of activity that can really help you and help you develop what you want to do. And then find that third part of that process. You've got purpose, community. It's very much about technologies. What can we bring into our business that can really drive efficiencies, effectiveness within the business? And again, I challenge any business owner, and we do this on the week, we do it in our accelerator programs, is to kind of take a review, take stock of where technology exists within the business. So we use a tool called the Business Model Canvas. We work very closely with businesses in that. There are 9 building blocks, and each of those building blocks should not be seen as silos, but they should be seen as elements of a system. And what we want to do is find the ways that we can stimulate and create activity around each of those relevant connections. And technology is one of the driving forces for that. So data in the business starts to come out in every shape or form. And we really need to understand what that data is telling us. What is it telling us about satisfaction of our customers? What is it telling us about friction between the buying process? What is it telling us about the customer journey as a whole? All of this information should be constantly evaluated and being used within our business to enhance what it is that we're aiming to deliver. So there's purpose, as I said, community, technology. Now, the overarching thing that creates all of that into a powerful brand is the narrative that sits above it. And that's very much driven from our personal ambitions, the language that we use, the way that we talk about that connection, those connections that exist within the business. And that process in itself is a really powerful way of developing and harnessing the brand. And every piece of communication that we have, whether it be our website, our social media output, whatever it is, at the end of the day, that becomes part of the narrative of what we're trying to achieve within the business. So again, I think there's so much of good stuff that we can help businesses really engage with and focus upon. But I guess out of all of it, really for us, building this community is everything. That is at the end of the day the driving force of what we're about. If we can create the critical mass within this community that actually then offers real value to everybody that's within it. And all we can do is provide additional value through the ecosystem that we want to create and want to connect people to. Then at that particular point, we can start to raise aspiration and raise the density of entrepreneurship within this particular area. So yeah, so it's all good stuff.
Yeah, and I think for being as involved in technology as I am, it takes a while to learn that technology can be sort of both a positive and a benefit, and a hindrance, in the sense of, like, you find something that you think you've really attached to, you think, this is the answer to my problems, and you sort of invest in sort of implementing something new, but it takes some time to realize that the answer to your problems or the difficulties that you're having is often not just a sort of simple technological innovation, like, now I've answered all my problems by converting myself to this sort of program or this platform or this piece of software or customer management system. It's about implementing something new is always just the first step in it, because you could spend forever sort of being attracted like a magpie to different sort of technologies. And I found this often when I was making videos for companies and charities. It was always about, things would be so much easier if I had a better camera or better microphone or better this. And ultimately, people who are very successful don't get bogged down by the limitations that they perceive that they have. Like, you could create a successful YouTube channel or podcasting career just from using your phone. So it's about understanding what it is that you have, maybe wanting to have things that are better, but it's the action and the implementation of what you've already got that's often sort of the differentiator between people who are aspirational and people who are actually being able to act upon their aspiration. So certainly a problem for many people I was talking to, especially when trying to sort of coach people into doing sort of video activism in the sort of charity space. There was a lot of self-doubt, and I was trying to sort of convey that, in the past, yes, in multiple years past, just having a phone might not have been sufficient, but nowadays you can use pretty much what it is that you've already got in your pocket to sort of share a message and start building either your brand or your community, or having the sort of meaningful interactions and achieving your goals. And I think we found that as we've sort of moved our community to where it is now, is that there's a lot of good things about it and a lot of things that we're happy with, but that still doesn't take away the need that we have to sort of address the concerns, the problems that every community has in trying to make engagement relevant, make content relevant, find out why people are drawn to you in the first place, and sort of foster that. The old if you build it, they will come kind of thing isn't. It might work in the films, but it doesn't seem to apply to reality.
It only works if you're Kevin Costner, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can sort of open the door and sort of announce from the sort of rooftops, but it's a sustained level of work.
Yeah, you have to offer value. I always just think you have to keep pumping value into the engine, and I think we do that, and I think it's just getting recognized for that bit by bit. And I, when you look at what's in that free network and that free community, I challenge anybody to find as much kind of good content that's free in that regard and around that. But at the end of it all, the community becomes the driving force for everything that we're doing within this process. And, our mission, and I've been working on our mission, it'd be quite interesting. I start writing up some stuff. So I might just read it out if that's okay. Maybe get your feedback, but also get some feedback from the audience and see whether anybody actually, kind of sees this. But our mission is to amass the power of the individuals into an energized community of entrepreneurs, hungry for meaningful, sustainable growth. Boosting regional aspirations, we create a new narrative by breaking down those barriers that inhibit opportunity and fostering learning. We are a force for positive change. Committed to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in all our endeavours, we will shine a light on the region's entrepreneurial and innovative community, sharing their stories in a unique way that says to the rest of the world, we are here, take notice.
That's pretty good.
Is that all right?
Yeah. I think the thing I like about it is that it doesn't separate the two aspects of what it's like to be an aspirational entrepreneur. The desire for personal betterment and personal development and personal prosperity doesn't have to be at the exclusion of a greater sense of purpose. So I often found, I suppose that's probably what drove me into nursing, is that, as a primary career, was that I often found talking about finances and money and having a desire to acquire monetary remuneration to better my life as something of embarrassment. Maybe that's sort of a cultural thing as well, but the idea that you can be a prosperous person but also do it in a way that makes a positive impact is, I don't think now, less so now, it's not mutually exclusive. So I think if you can create a community of people who are not only interested in their own personal development and gain and development like that, but also doing it while benefiting their region, their community, their environment, socially and physically, then that's got to be a worthy aspiration, surely.
I would have thought so. All right. Well, I'll share that with us on Slack, and then we can see whether we can get that. I want to get a vision and mission page on the website because I think they're still really important messages, and also kind of a set of principles that we adhere to. So I know that we've got a development session coming up on the 22nd of May. So I think we'll certainly within that, I think, agree on a set of kind of 10 principles that really matter to us within the values of what we're trying to achieve within the business. So I think
I think that's useful as well for also because it's useful for people to see that when they're approaching us just sort of cold and without any sort of priming. But also I'm kind of drawn to the sort of like Google's don't be evil and these sort of real simple, easy to understand one sentence statements. I'm not sure if you're aware of Huddle, the food brand.
Yeah, I think I know them.
Yeah, I use them a fair bit because of their sort of vegan sort of leanings and these sort of things. But they've got like a big sort of sign in their office, and excuse my French, just says "Don't be a dick," which is a pretty, it's kind of a slightly more tongue-in-cheek version of Google's "Don't be evil" statement. But I think if there is a way in which you can just sort of really simply convey your message in a short, succinct way, which people just kind of get and then always attribute to you, then that's got to be a marketer's dream, isn't it? Just having that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to try to sort of think from my perspective in a sort of daily living kind of way, my kind of statement is just to try and be better each day, is in as many aspects of my life as I can be, and that's always a challenge, though. Especially when you're sat in front of a computer, it's the temptation to sort of let lethargy and lack of physical action take over is tricky.
Yeah, and I force I try very hard to, because I was doing things like walking football and stuff like that, but the number of people that go on it sort of diminished. It's not got off the ground, so I keep thinking, well, I've got to go and join the gym. I've got to go and do something like that. But I try to get out every day and walk the dogs, which gives me, and I think this is again important because just as an acknowledgement, now I think is the Mental Health Awareness Month where we are, and I think we're heading into anxiety. I think being aware of anxiety is a particular week of understanding around what makes people anxious, and I think mental health for entrepreneurship is hugely important, and physical activity is a great what's the word I'm looking for? A great means to really absorb yourself, or get rid of the noise in your mind and go focus on that physical presence that you're trying to create. And even for me, just going out with the dogs for an hour and just over that, we're walking with them, gives me that opportunity, that break and away. And I think, it's just trying very hard to get to that discipline of doing that for, at least once a day. Unfortunately, my dogs are not particularly great in the wet, and they do resent me taking them out in the wet. But at the same time, I do think that that's really important. And on our newsletter this week, this month, we got a guest blog by Paula Ruan, who is a local stress specialist within the field of what she does. She's an author. She's also run many networks within the region, and Paula will be certainly, her guest blog or a guest piece on the newsletter certainly gives you a lot more kind of insight and thinking around that. And I would encourage anybody, self-employed, gig economy, entrepreneur, anybody out there thinking about, where they need to be, their mental health is something at the end of the day we really need to kind of really sort of kind of work on it and keep good and keep active in our minds, because we put ourselves under, as entrepreneurs, you put yourself under a huge amount of pressure to achieve something, and you're always judging yourself and feeling like you're judged, and there's always that fear of imposter syndrome that exists in our mindset. And I think it's just massively important that we need to be able to keep that process going. And in fact, I think there was a quote, wasn't there, somewhere along the line of, basically, if you don't look after yourself, then you can't look after anybody. So I think I may have even alluded to that. And
it's that old sort of aircraft analogy, isn't it? If you put your own mask on first.
Yes.
And also, as nurses, it's very much drilled into us. I've worked in sort of pretty much most aspects of nursing, from sort of hospital to residential to sort of acute to chronic, and it's always that case of, you get this sort of martyrdom syndrome where nurses are constantly sort of burning themselves out because of the amount of work that they're doing. And I think I always tried to have a healthy mindset towards it, in the sense of that you're never going to run out of work to do as a nurse. It's not going to be a time when you can sort of get to the an hour before the end of the day and say, oh, I've done it all now, I can sort of sit back and relax. There's always going to be something you can do. You can work through every break you've got and these sort of things. And the stress and the pressure to do that just seems to be getting ever more prevalent. But ultimately, one of the problems of healthcare is, again, an increasing demand, but then the existing work base is sort of working themselves to early retirement. And I think one person I was speaking to as a nurse who's saying, oh yeah, she's a nurse, but now she just wants to leave and has got a job lined up in a fast food restaurant.
Really?
Anything is just, she'll take anything to get out of the stress. And part of it is stress that you can't sort of really mitigate for. It is the nature of the job. But a part of me thinks as to, wow, how is somebody managing that stress, or trying to be mindful of the fact that there will always be pressures upon you, and how do you deal with that? I was always very adamant that no matter what pressures were under, for me, taking your break and just removing yourself from the situation is just paramount. I used to have nurses in their office checking on emails, or the staff room, you could still hear the buzzers of, for people calling for assistance. And you think, well, that's not switching off. If you're still sort of hearing the sort of, and getting the anxiety of what you've got to face when you finish your sort of 15-minute tea break, you're still in that mindset. So being able to sort of remove yourself physically, from a sort of working from an office, just try and go outside. And again, it's part of that sort of magpie side of me that gets drawn to ridiculous sort of fitness fads and fitness exercising things. But ultimately, the things that you need to maintain your physical and mental health are things that we all have access to, be it just a simple 10 push-ups in the morning, or just some people saying sort of do like little calf raises while you're brushing your teeth. These sort of little things just to keep your body in the ability to keep moving. Or when you've got a break, don't sort of start scrolling on social media, but maybe listening to something that's calming and relaxing, rather than constantly feeling like every spare minute of your time when not dedicated to your business endeavors is wasted time. I think that's a terrible problem for sort of entrepreneurs, is that we always feel that if you've got any free time, anything other than progressing yourself or progressing your work is kind of squandered. Whereas in reality, spending that time to have a healthy disconnect and be able to say, come whatever time, it's time to switch off, may feel counterintuitive because you're not there to answer a message from somebody who's designing something for you, or respond to an email request for something that would bring you great benefit. But in the long term, having that time to switch off is not only beneficial for you, but also at building those barriers to people, so getting into the habit of saying, no, once the weekend comes, I'm not going to be answering emails for any occasion. And it may seem like you're sabotaging your prospects, but having some self-respect and self-discipline to not only be disciplined at work, but also be disciplined with your time away from work is something I've yet to fully embrace or fully get good at.
It is. It is. Yeah, I think, like you say, I think it's a work in progress for all of us. I think for me, out of all of it, if they were going to say one thing, it's about community, and it's about being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think that when you're in that particular zone, it's not about kind of being immersed in self-pity. It's about being immersed in positivity, and and finding the ability to be able to choose to engage or not to engage, but not to be judged or criticized for whichever route you particularly take. And I think that's massively important when you're in this particular world. And I think it's one of the things I noticed, having come from years and years and years ago now, but come from a sort of kind of a corporate environment, was that there was a real, even though it was a highly competitive environment, there was still a huge sense of community amongst the people that worked in it. And I think, you in a traditional kind of micro culture or micro business culture where we find ourselves in this particular region, even though we may go to networking, even though we may, build some relationships and do it, it's still not what I believe to be that kind of sense of, we're in this all together. At the end of the day, if we collectively can raise, kind of opportunity and aspirations for each other, then ultimately that raises the tide for everybody within that particular framework. And living in this environment becomes more of a pleasure when at the end of the day there is opportunity being created for the next generation, for yourself to grow, for whatever that particular region or reason. So it's that regional cauldron of activity that really will, at the end of the day, engender and develop something of value.
Yeah, and that's why I like having these sort of Friday events, because when people get to watch this later after the live broadcast, is that they sort of see that even though we are, I guess, the figureheads of business, we are not immune from all of these things. It's not as if people are coming here to sort of hear the gospel from on high. We are all dealing with these problems in a very real sense day to day, of how to manage our own personal commitments and how to manage the commitments of a business, how to sort of find meaning and express our desires and our aspirations for ourselves as well. So it's not, very much a not an us and them kind of situation. It's a us and us.
Absolutely. It's really,
hey guys,
kind of
us and us.
I find it very hard. heartening. I don't know, sort of
Hmm.
to believe that, and for when I see this down at the university, this kind of sense of coming together, and it's really interesting because one of the analogies that we always said about the Weave was this idea of trying to be a university for the region, for those micro business owners, to actually give them a similar kind of experience to what we provide for our university students. And when you imagine what they get this sense of support, and the university are championing them for their work, and they're finding areas where they can get micro funding and opportunities to pitch and develop their voice and their language, get mentorship, do all of these various things, grow and sharpen the sword so much, and the saw so much that they can constantly start to develop and think about their business. And they get this presented to them as part of an overall cohort of people who wear the badge of Essex really, really proudly, and wear the badge of their university really proudly. And I just think, for me, that why isn't that seen as a great opportunity to deliver something similar for our micro business culture? With the difference is, with the university, they generally go back to get educated and get a degree. Our micro business people go out to pay their mortgages and do all of the other stuff that they really need to do and build a living. But at the end of it all, if you can actually connect those resources into the point of need and actually start to elevate opportunities through funding opportunities, through educational opportunities, through the community as a whole, now all of a sudden, right, that's an experience not dissimilar to what you would get from the university.
Excellent. That's probably a great thing to leave on.
Good stuff.
So I think it's all good for us. What we're going to be doing is sharing this online as well, so you can watch it back later. And one little minor change happened is now get a little referral bonuses as well if you manage to bring some other people along for the journey. It's just for kudos and the clout at the moment, but who knows what might happen in the future.
Exactly.
So,
all right, mate.
Who knows indeed. Yeah, be good.
Okay,
all have a peaceful weekend.
Yes, and you, and I'll catch up with you shortly anyway. We'll keep chatting away on Slack and email, and update you on all the relevant bits and pieces that's going on.
Keep the embers smouldering.
Yeah, just as a final call, if you haven't managed to connect to us on LinkedIn as well, we're always on LinkedIn. We're always got a program, got everything there. So, if you want to join our community, can't see any downside to it personally, then join it. www.wearetheweave.co.uk/membership. It's free. And it will give you access to all of those kind of resources. And if you want any more advice, want any more support, then just reach out.
Excellent. And like I say, I think from now we'll be sharing these as well on LinkedIn as well, so you don't have to be in the community to join, but we'd love to see you there. All right. Bye for now. See you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Live long and prosper.